The warm breeze flows on a peaceful summer day, and the sound of typing echoes in the air. A young boy, Cotaroo, sits at his computer, relieved when he finally finishes his assignment. Relaxing in his chair, he picks up a book to read but doesn't get to unwind for long as his phone starts ringing. Begrudgingly, he walks toward the sound, grabbing a snack as he searches for his phone. When he finally finds it lying on the ground, he answers the call, discussing how everything went smoothly with the unpacking. Surprised by the unexpected response from the caller, he soon heads to Takao, where he meets a couple. The man hands Cotaroo his ticket while he turns to hug his wife. Cotaroo isn't happy to see the affectionate couple in front of him and complains that they could have gone without him. The man counters, asking if he doesn't care about them getting lost on the trail. Cotaroo argues that it's nearly impossible to get lost when using the cable car, but the man remains cautious about potential mishaps. Without further argument, Cotaroo joins the couple, silently following them around and buying a box of snacks when they offer him food. As they walk along the track, Cotaroo explains that track number 1 is well constructed, with stores and bathrooms. He introduces them to various attractions like the Monkey Park and the Good Luck Octopus, mentioning that cars can also pass through this track. The couple walks behind him, taking pictures as he explains that after passing the temple, they just need to follow the path to the summit. Cotaroo notes that this place is more suited for sightseeing than hiking. He's about to say more when the woman interrupts, asking if he researched a lot about this place since he seems to know so much. Cotaroo replies that he doesn't have much information, while the man tells his wife how Cotaroo has spent his life here. The locals of Hekioji often visit the mountain, even for school trips. The woman, satisfied with the explanation, asks Cotaroo why he doesn't seem happy to return since he recently moved back. He admits that he doesn't have good memories associated with this place. Just then, a strong wind starts blowing, nearly knocking them off their feet. The man quickly checks on his wife, while Cotaroo stares off into space, murmuring how this is the place where a tango kidnapped him. Upon reaching the temple, the couple asks Cotaroo for more details about his abduction. He tells them it was very mysterious, but he has no memories of the incident, only stories from his relatives. The man inquires if he lost his memories due to the shock. Cotaroo responds that his body seems to remember, as if it wants to stop him from coming here. Later, while sitting alone on a bench, his thoughts swirl around the strangeness of the incident. Back in elementary school, he couldn't recall anything about being lost in the mountains, but he feels someone intentionally covered up those memories. He senses he has visited this place before and remembers crying out of fear. He is curious about how he was rescued, but he reassures himself that it's probably good he can't remember, as it was a traumatic experience. Suddenly, the couple returns, but Cotaroo feels something strange as blurry memories of a girl surface. The couple continues discussing Tengus and their similarities to yokai. The man mentions that the god here is also a tenga, assuming Cotaroo knows this. They talk about two statues, one of a man with a long nose and another with a beak, and admire the beautiful leaves of the season. Meanwhile, Cotaroo recalls someone mentioning the names of trees and plants, and a realization hits him. He has met someone here. He starts running ahead, standing on the edge of a small cliff, recognizing the path ahead. As he descends, a twig cuts his cheek, and a flashback hits him. He remembers being at the same spot with someone else. He takes a step but gets tangled in a branch, almost falling. Turning around, he comes face to face with a giant wolf and a girl wearing a bird mask. Cotaroo stares in shock as the girl warns him not to come here, saying there can't be a third time. Before he can process what is happening, he finds himself sitting on the temple stairs. The man asks if something is wrong, but Cotaroo dismisses him, lost in thought about the girl. Back at home, he cooks dinner while glancing at the compass in his hand. Late at night, he decides to return to the mountain. Surprised by how dark it is, a stark reminder of how scary it must have been for a child. As he steps forward, he's surprised that no one is trying to stop him this time. Cotaroo feels a deep sense that he can't remember something very important and that he needs to meet someone here. Suddenly, his foot slips and he falls into a ditch. The accident triggers another flashback. He remembers crying because of his injuries, sitting beside a giant dog. A young girl approached him, asking if he had been crying for long and then offering to see his injured hand. Despite her concern, she effectively heals his wound, and Cotaroo finally stops crying. She kneels in front of him, suggesting they go get some medicine, and for the first time, he sees her beautiful face. Back in the present, Cotaroo wakes up to find the girl from his childhood sitting in front of him. She's worried about his injuries, but he just stares at her and the small wings on her back. When he remains silent for several moments, she waves her hand in front of his face, asking if he hit his head. Before she can finish, Cotaroo interrupts, asking if she was the one who rescued him in the past. Without waiting for an answer, he recounts how he got separated from his school group and fell beside the giant dog. The girl seems surprised he still remembers her. Cotaroo quickly holds her hand, repeating everything that happened that day. Startled, she asks if he remembers their promise. Seeing his blank expression, she realizes he can't recall it and begins to scream at him for coming back despite her warnings. Her words echo in his mind. She had told him not to return for the third time. Her agitation deepens when she asks if he knows the rules of the village. Cotaroo stares at her, clueless, as she struggles to explain what it means for two people who meet 3 times under the sacred tree. A deep blush coats her cheeks as she suddenly hugs Cotaroo, revealing that those who meet under this tree must get married. In a sacred house, a lively party unfolds with many people wearing bird masks, celebrating and indulging in food. Amidst the revelry, Cotaroo sits with a solemn expression, unnoticed as everyone else is absorbed in feasting and discussing Hine's upcoming marriage. A masked man pours drinks for him, and Cotaroo apologizes for zoning out, only to be reprimanded for saying sorry when he is, in fact, the groom. Confused, he tries to piece together how he ended up in this situation. Another man compliments his looks, and another remarks on the surprise of Hine choosing a human, speculating about the potential for them to have a tall son. As Cotaroo struggles to remember events after slipping from the cliff, Hine bursts in, scolding everyone for organizing a banquet without her consent. When someone complains about her tardiness, Hine redirects the conversation, chastising another for saying she should wear a tanga mask even though she is marrying Cotaroo. Angrily, she insists that the mask is outdated. Observing this, Cotaroo is struck by how they are using the same banner from her birthday party. One masked man explains that a banquet is customary after such news, but Hine, still irate, declares the party cancelled. Complaints arise from the guests, accusing Hine of bringing a man here impulsively and insisting they were merely trying to set everything up quickly. Despite Cotaroo's attempts to interject, he is ignored. Hine explains that Cotaroo has only recently regained his memories of their first meeting and is not yet ready for marriage. An elder man counters, noting that they have met 3 times under the sacred tree, revealing that Hine had expressed eagerness to marry the human. Hine blushes at this exposure but reluctantly admits the truth. The crowd then turns their attention to Cotaroo, bombarding him with questions about his background and career. Hine attempts to intervene, but her efforts go unheard. Finally, Cotaroo speaks up, sharing that he hails from Hachioji, works as a system engineer, and is currently single with no desire to marry. He thanks Hine for rescuing him and clarifies that he is not bound by village rules and will apologize if he has inadvertently broken one. Before he can finish, an old woman interrupts, insisting that he cannot do that. Hine tries to calm her grandmother, but the elder warns Cotaroo about the consequences of disobeying their traditions, especially concerning Hine needing an heir. In a protective gesture, Hine steps in front of Cotaroo, defending him and asserting that he is merely struggling to recall everything. Confusion flickers across her grandmother's face, prompting Hine to reassure her that she will help Cotaroo regain his memories. Acknowledging the village rules, she requests some private time with Cotaroo. Once they find a quiet moment away from prying eyes, Cotaroo expresses his ignorance about the village's customs. Hine interrupts him, returning his mobile phone and suggesting they escape through the sky while everyone is preoccupied with drinking. She suggests they need to find him some shoes. Cotaroo, still bewildered, questions her desire to marry him, reiterating his lack of interest in marriage. Hine softly reminds him that he has no real memories and reminisces about how he once chased her, repeatedly calling her name. Cotaroo admits he can recall that, and Hine's smile deepens as she mentions that he must have a family to protect. A moment of reflection passes, and Hine apologizes for bringing him into this chaos. Just then, she finds his shoes and realizes he doesn't have a wallet. Cotaroo searches his pockets, only to discover his compass is missing. Hine speculates that someone may have picked it up, and their conversation is interrupted when a group of children runs by, commenting on the presence of a human. As Hine's wings flutter with excitement, she asks if he has a small compass. Enchanted, Cotaroo reaches out to touch her wings, surprised to find they are real and move under his fingertips. Hine blushes at his attention and suddenly asks if he is not afraid to touch a Teng's wing. Cotaroo admits he is scared, but their moment is cut short when they hear someone approaching. Hine quickly ushers him into a nearby room. While hiding, they overhear Tengus criticizing Hine for showing her face to a human. They express concern that she should focus on her duties as a leader instead of bringing in an outsider. Once the corridor falls silent, Hine murmurs that those Tengus will be held accountable for their disrespectful comments. Cotaroo is surprised to learn she is the leader, thinking it was her grandmother. Hine explains that her family, including her parents and grandparents, were leaders before passing away. Although the villagers raised her, she feels irritation toward their traditional views. Suddenly, Hime excitedly asks Cotaroo for his opinion on whether shorter hakama would be cuter. Without waiting for a response, she rambles about how masks are an outdated tradition that ruin her hair. Cotaroo hesitantly agrees that it's easier to communicate without masks, which delights Hime. She changes the topic, asking about the device she returned earlier, calling it a smartphone. When she correctly identifies it, her pride shines through as she mentions her familiarity with tablets and computers. Cotaroo listens in fascination as she explains how climbers often lose their devices, and she collects them from the cliffs. Hine's fascination with the outside world grows as she describes people enjoying life, eating, taking pictures, and being with loved ones. Cotaroo recalls what the other Tengus said about her. Hine continues, lamenting how she cannot use the devices since they are password protected and don't have electricity here. Being the village leader means she must marry and bear an heir, but her desire to experience life outside frustrates her. She stands up, apologizing for her rants, and promises to fetch her compass from Aikshin. Cotaroo tries to stop her, but she rushes off. Alone, he contemplates the voices outside, speculating whether Hine is genuinely getting married or planning to flee. He overhears a conversation about the strict rules governing her marriage and the expectation of her to bear children for the village's sake. In a serene clearing, Hine advises Cotaroo to breathe deeply if he's scared, assuring him he won't fall, though he shouldn't look down if he's afraid of heights. Cotaroo asks why no one has followed them, and Hine explains they are still celebrating. She presents the compass to him, but instead of handing it over, she clutches it tightly, revealing it as a protection charm she made because he treasures it. She wishes him health and asks him to take care of himself before turning to leave. Cotaroo hesitates, voicing his concern about her potential punishment for breaking the rules. Hine reassures him, saying she hasn't faced severe consequences before, although her grandmother warns of dangers in defying tradition. With a smile, she insists this is her issue, and he shouldn't worry. Cotaroo thinks deeply, declaring it doesn't concern him what rules this place follows. He suggests she has the right to defy them, emphasizing that she deserves to live life as she chooses. Hine is taken aback, considering that if she refuses to marry, her family line could end. Cotaroo maintains that it's acceptable for her to prioritize her own happiness. He explains that while he respects her family, she should still escape to experience life. Hine begins to warm to the idea, asking if she'll get to wear Western clothes and shop in modern stores. When Cotaroo affirms this, her excitement builds as she asks about exploring cities and riding trains, blushing at the thought. As she envisions wearing sneakers, trying new foods, and walking on the beach, her enthusiasm shines. Holding his hand, she declares they should enjoy all these experiences together. This unexpected proclamation stuns Cotaroo, who protests that he didn't invite her to live with him. Ignoring his objections, Hine picks him up by the collar, insisting they must inform everyone about her decision. Flying through the air, she brings him back to the banquet hall, announcing she will live with Cotaroo as his wife. The crowd cheers, but Cotaroo is still trying to grasp the situation while Hine excitedly continues to chatter about their future together. Frustrated, he again tries to clarify his intentions, repeating that she should follow her heart, not the rules. Hine giggles, insisting her engagement to him is a way to abide by those rules since they will be living together. Cotaroo attempts to counter her logic, but is interrupted by Hine's exuberant shout as they reach his house. Dropping him on the ground, she beams at his home, thrilled that it will be their new abode. Remembering her earlier words, Cotaroo inquires about a promise he may have made her, but Hine refuses to divulge any details, hinting he should ask again once he recalls everything. As she hugs him tightly, she expresses her excitement about living happily together from that moment on. Cotaroo sleeps peacefully on his couch, the soft sounds of the morning disrupted only by the ringing of his alarm. As he slowly wakes, he sees a notification reminding him to take out the trash. When he turns around, he's startled to find Hine sleeping at the table, her head resting on her arms. In her dreams, she mumbles about wanting more red rice, and it suddenly dawns on Cotaroo that he had completely forgotten about her presence. Seeing that Hine is deeply asleep, he silently approaches her, his fingers grazing the feathers of her wings. The gentle touch sparks fleeting memories of his childhood, but before he can delve deeper, Hime awakens with a start. She calls him out for touching her wings while she sleeps, and Cotaroo stumbles back, hastily apologizing. Hime, unfazed by his embarrassment, suggests they start over. She bows politely and insists that he needs to take care of her since she's unfamiliar with this new life. She hands him a small box, expressing her desire to meet his family. Frustration bubbles up in Cotaroo, and he snaps at her, reminding her that he never invited her to stay in his house. Hime, undeterred, points out that he was the one who suggested she leave her village. Cotaroo argues back, clarifying that he only meant she could experience the outside world. When Hime innocently states that she doesn't know anyone else, he inquires about any Tang communities. She explains that the other Tengists live in the mountains, which would feel similar to living in the village. Although he agrees with her reasoning, Cotaroo still insists she should reconsider her decision and return to her village. Ignoring his protests, Hime begins unpacking her belongings. When he objects, she explains that the villagers already believe she is marrying him, so going back is not an option. Reluctantly, Cotaroo concedes, allowing her to stay for a few days, but Hime refuses to accept this temporary arrangement. She chats casually about her things, asking where she should place her belongings. Then she pulls out a jar and calls for something to come out. Cotaroo is taken aback when a fox suddenly emerges from the small pot. Staring in shock, he listens as Hime excitedly explains how she has many items stored in the jar. She offers him some sweets from the village, but Cotaroo is still stunned and asks how she accomplished this. He questions if she possesses powers as a tango. Hime blushes slightly, saying he can call it magical powers but insists she isn't particularly talented since she's a Karasu tango. Suddenly grabbing her hand, Cotaroo marvels at her abilities, observing how light appears to emanate from her palm. He praises her powers, but Hime pulls her hand away, teasingly asking if he enjoys touching others. Cotaroo hastily apologizes, but she reassures him it's just her hand. Turning slightly away, she asks if he finds her body appealing. He tells her not to phrase it that way, but Hime ignores his discomfort, standing up to fetch her cleaning supplies. Once again, Cotaroo is surprised by her magic as she unveils her cleaning tools, proudly asserting that she is a good wife. Showing off a dusting cloth makes Cotaroo uncomfortable, and he urges her to relax. This frustrates Hime, who argues that she cannot be a good wife by being lazy. Skeptical about her cleaning knowledge due to her leadership background, he suggests she wouldn't know how to clean. Offended, Hine shares memories of running around with a mop as a child and that tatami rooms can't be cleaned in circles. Cotaroo drops the argument and hands her a vacuum cleaner, explaining how it works and encouraging her to try it. Hine is astounded that it uses electricity, and when she presses the button, she joyfully cheers as it starts moving. Cotaroo smiles slightly at her excitement, ready to tackle the laundry. As he prepares to leave, he overhears Hime deciding to clean the back room first. He quickly turns around, telling her she doesn't need to clean that room, but she's already opened the door. Her eyes widen in surprise at the sight of books piled high. When she asks if they are all his, he replies they belong to his late grandfather. Hime steps inside, enchanted by the collection, and excitedly picks out a book about yukai. She beams, commenting that Cotaroo must really like yukai since all the books are about them. He attempts to deny it, but Hime teases him about his interest, leading her to wonder if this is why he finds her body fascinating. Cotaroo sighs, repeating that the books are his grandfather's. Hime, still smug, expresses her desire to showcase her powers to Cotaroo's grandfather, believing he would be impressed. However, when she turns around, she finds that Cotaroo has already left the room. Peeking out the door, she calls his name, but he merely responds that he's going to do laundry. He mentions the library room is dirty, adding that she should take off her socks before entering. Hime, surprised, learns that he recently moved back to the house. After realizing her mistake, she apologizes for assuming he had always lived there. Cotaroo hesitates, finally telling her he grew up in an orphanage. Hine's expression falls as she processes this information, sharing that she, too, lost her family but was always supported by her village. Cotaroo explains that he had no one to look after him, casually noting that a child cannot live alone. He doesn't think much of it until he sees her somber expression. Hime asks if he felt alone, to which he replies he never thought of it that way. Not liking her pitying gaze, he's about to shift the topic when Hime suddenly points out that her socks are dirty. She stands up, determined to do the laundry instead. Cotaroo tries to dissuade her, but she insists she can handle it. When he attempts to argue again, Hine declares she'll take charge of the laundry and clean from now on, vowing to wake him in the morning and prepare food for him. Cotaroo stares in disbelief as Hine takes control of the situation. He tries to intervene, but she pays him no mind. Rushing to his room to grab his laundry, he feels relieved to have avoided her washing his underwear. With the basket in hand, he heads toward the washroom and asks Hine if she can use the washing machine. As he opens the door to the washroom, he's startled to find Hine changing clothes. He quickly slams the door shut, asking her what's wrong. Hine casually explains that she's just changing out of the clothes she wore yesterday and that she wants to wash her undergarments. Cotaroo yells at her to warn him next time, realizing he was the one who opened the door without thinking. Hine peeks out, dressed in her robe, and inquires about his laundry. Cotaroo shuts the door again, telling her not to come out wearing her kimono's underwear. Hine is confused, believing she is fully dressed. Meanwhile, Cotaroo struggles to comprehend why she reacts so strongly when he touches her wings. Later, as he sits in his living room, he concludes that he truly needs to find a way to send Hine back to the mountains. Sitting around the table, Cotaroo and Hine enjoy their meal when a loud growl from Hine's stomach breaks the calm. Annoyed, Cotaroo asks why she's still hungry when she's on her 5th manju. Hine retorts that it's not her fault she's still hungry. Standing up, Cotaroo points out that she can't fill up on manjuice alone, but unfortunately, there's nothing else in the fridge. Peering inside, he sighs, lamenting his lack of food, and decides to head to the convenience store. Just then, Hine spots a noodle packet on the side and expresses her desire to eat that. Cotaroo warns her that the noodles won't taste as good as they look on the packaging, then asks if she likes ramen. Hine lights up, sharing that she's seen people eating it in the mountains and knows it just requires hot water. Always wanting to try it, she asks if she can prepare it herself. Cotaroo nods, starting to prepare the instant noodles while telling her not to get too excited. However, Hine watches him in awe as he boils water. Sensing her enthusiasm, he invites her to join in the cooking. Confused but eager, she chooses the same flavor as him, and they both approach the stove. Cotaroo guides her to open the lid halfway, and her heart races with excitement. She gasps at the sight of the dried ingredients, her face flushing with anticipation. Cotaroo chuckles and instructs her to fill the cup with water up to the line. When Hine struggles to find the line, he points it out, and she finally begins pouring in the water. As the ingredients rise, Hine worries about spilling, but Cotaroo reassures her that everything is fine. She gazes at the filled packet in wonder and then follows his direction to close the lid. They place their cups in the microwave, and Hine counts down the seconds eagerly. When the microwave dings, she jumps up, thrilled to see her noodles are ready. After confirming with Cotaroo that it's time to eat, they sit back down and give a quick thanks for the meal. Hine dives in, her eyes lighting up as she savors the noodles. She exclaims how delicious they are, surprised by the unique flavor that differs from soy sauce. The strange wavy noodles, she notes, are delightfully soft, and the meat is tender. Cotaroo informs her that they're actually called Chinese-style noodles, which only fuels her enthusiasm. Hine marvels at how something so delicious can be made just by adding hot water, her focus returning to her meal. Cotaroo watches her with a tender smile, then suddenly chuckles. When she asks why, he suggests she could make another if she's still hungry. He teases her, knowing she enjoys eating. But Hine tries to deny it even as she finishes 3 more packets. Afterward, she thanks him, clapping her hands joyfully while Cotaroo reflects on how much she truly loves to eat. Hine closes her eyes in bliss, giggling softly. She shares how she never imagined she'd get to eat noodles after leaving her home in the mountains. Remembering the unique taste of soba she once had, she expresses her gratitude for living in his house, sincerely thanking him for the experience. Cotaroo is taken aback by her heartfelt words, his face flushing as he points out that it's just a cup of noodles. Hine insists that if they hadn't met, she would never have had this chance to enjoy such food, and she's eager to tell everyone how delicious it is. Curious about their reactions, she envisions sharing her discovery with the villagers. Cotaroo shyly tells her he can make more dishes for her, prompting Hine to smile brightly. She excitedly pulls out another cup of noodles, while Cotaroo thinks to himself that he might let her stay a while longer. Hine eagerly plans to clean the cups, intending to keep them in her collection, and once she finishes eating, she quickly tidies up everything, leaving Cotaroo bewildered by her determination. Cotaroo prepares a sandwich for Hine, allowing her to help with the small tasks. Her excitement is palpable as they layer the ingredients on the bread, and once they finish, he praises her for her effort as a beginner. Hine stares at the sandwich, marveling at how it looks so amazing despite having such a scary name. After confirming that the coffee is ready, they sit down to eat. As expected, Hine can't help but exclaim how good everything tastes. Cotaroo silently enjoys his meal, relieved that he still had enough bread at home. While savoring her food, Hine expresses her disbelief that she's having such a delicious breakfast and mentions how she's looking forward to more food later. Cotaroo hesitates and Hine, sensing his uncertainty, anxiously asks if they will have lunch. His assurance that he will cook anything she wants fills her with joy. He mentions he's thinking of buying some meat today, and her excitement is contagious. Suddenly, Hine remembers she needs to hang the wet futons and clean the house. Cotaroo points out that she should prepare her room and tells her to bring her bag. However, Hine is not pleased with this suggestion, nearly shouting that they already agreed to sleep in the same room. Cotaroo counters, reminding her of their conversation the previous day. Undeterred, Hine smiles brightly, declaring that she has already set up the futons, and casually asks which side he prefers as she's not picky. Ignoring her, Cotaroo starts packing the futons, prompting Hine to protest that she just prepared them. He insists they will not sleep in the same room, claiming futons are uncomfortable. As he turns to walk away, Hine grabs his shirt with surprising strength, her determination unwavering as she insists they sleep together on a futon. Frustrated, he tosses the futons to the ground, asserting that this will be her temporary room. Hine frowns at the distance, voicing her displeasure. Cotaroo struggles internally, wanting her to return to her mountains but keeping his thoughts to himself. Hine quickly shifts her focus to the food, asking if she can try it with the white sauce. Cotaroo obliges, and as she takes a big bite, she comments on how it tastes sour compared to the red sauce, making Cotaroo think about how wide her mouth is. Hine, grateful for the meal, offers him a bite in return, but he hesitates at the thought of eating from a half-eaten slice. Hine, however, insists that it tastes great, leading to playful bickering between them. Just then, a voice from outside interrupts them. Curious, Cotaroo heads to the door and finds a delivery rider standing there. The man hands him registered mail and asks if he moved here recently. When Cotaroo confirms that he just arrived this month, the rider mentions that someone had said so. Cotaroo's confusion deepens as the rider explains that the house has been empty for a while and he thought he might have the wrong address. The man mentions that the Tsukisaka family once lived there and expresses happiness to see Cotaroo back, leaving him taken aback. He thanks the man, who departs, leaving Cotaroo surprised that some people still remember his family after 20 years. Returning inside, Hine watches him eagerly and asks if he received a letter. Cotaroo suddenly becomes aware of how different she looks with her silver hair, golden eyes, and small wings. Panic surges through him as he quickly shuts the door, frustrated with himself for forgetting how others might react to her presence. He worries about what kind of uproar this could create on social media, fearing for Hine's safety if she were to be discovered. His thoughts spiral, imagining the consequences for her and the other Tengus, potentially leading to experimentation by humans. Hine notices his pale expression and suggests he's hiding something. Cotaroo brushes it off, gently patting her hair to distract her. When she asks why he did that, he tells her it's to remind her to pay more attention to her appearance. He's determined to keep her hidden from the outside world. Trying to steer the conversation, he insists she prepare her bedroom. Hine protests, but Cotaroo mumbles that it will keep her safe from prying eyes. Their conversation is cut short when an old woman appears in the doorway, staring at them. Cotaroo rushes out to greet her, his heart racing. She seems delighted to see him and tries to recall the name of her son, to which Cotaroo informs her he is the grandson. The woman apologizes for her poor eyesight, mentioning how even her grandchildren tease her. Relieved that she probably didn't notice Hine, Cotaroo engages in conversation. The old woman reminisces about his childhood, sharing memories of how he loved eating watermelons with his grandmother. Her stories warm Kotaroo's heart, and he smiles as she recalls how he would devour all the ohaji his grandmother made, remembering fondly how he used to bring food to her. The conversation fills him with nostalgia as the old woman praises him for how much he has grown. After the brief yet heartwarming encounter, Cotaroo returns inside, pocketing his compass. He finds Hine sitting silently in her room, murmuring that she too likes ohaji. When Cotaroo agrees they are delicious, Hine suggests she could make some, then realizes her statement might not be appropriate. He gently pats her head, reassuring her. Cotaroo leaves to fetch a heater for her while Hine goes back to reading.